Good evening. This is MSY's Research Notes. Yesterday, I have finished the first essay, the review article written by a Chinese student, I think. So today, I'll move to the next one, the dynamic interactions in foreign language classroom anxiety and foreign language enjoyment of pupils aged 12 to 18, a pseudo-longitudinal investigation, written by Jean-Marc Dewell and his daughter Olivia Dewell. So I will retell this article from abstract to the very end. And when I am retelling, I will also introduce some preeminent figures and some theories that this article mentioned. So I think I really need to say that this author has done a very great job in writing this article. And you can see that when you're reading about this, you can see those two writers mentioned many preeminent figures which prove their thorough understanding or thorough mastery of this field, which is positive emotions. As well as negative emotions, because they also analyze the classroom anxiety. And also, when you're reading, you can clearly see the logic flow. So really, this author has a very great writing technique. And when I am reading this essay and taking notes, I also tried to learn the writing techniques or the logic that the authors teach me. So the first part is the abstract, and the abstract really constitutes 4 different small parts. Although the authors didn't really put those 4 parts separate, but I can see that it's just the logic moving from background to the implication. So just like I have introduced, probably in the second video or the first video, I can't remember it very clearly, but I have said that a great abstract follows the same logic line or the logic flow of your essay, moving from the literature review to the final implications. So this article also follows that kind of logic flow. The first is about the background. This essay, let's say, said that positive and negative emotions have attracted attention. This is the background, which is very simple, and then moved to the aim of the present study. So based on this kind of background, probably I think the author can add another one, which is the gap of the present study. You can see that here, this essay only includes the background or the foundation of the present study, but it really didn't point out the gaps or why you do such a research. Only because people focus attention on that. So you need to clearly point out the niche that you want to occupy or the gaps. So this is my suggestion, by the way. And then the authors moved to the aim of the present study. So it aims to, based on a pseudo-longitudinal design, to investigate how positive and negative emotions of 189 foreign language pupils in 2 London schools evolved over time. So it tries to analyze how those emotions of pupils evolved over time. It's a kind of pseudo-longitudinal design. So it's very clear. It also, this part is not merely telling about the aims of the present study, but also involves a large part of methodology. I think this is a very well writing technique, because when you're writing the aim of the present study, you not only say that therefore we aim to do something, but you integrate aims with your methodologies. Therefore, people can understand why you do this and how you do this at the same time. This is something that is very thought-provoking. And third is the results. The results were stratified into two different parts. The first is how FLA and FLE evolved among different age groups, and FLA showed variations, and FLE shows a slight increase. So this is briefly the results, which is also very clear. And the second part of the results is the regression analysis. Fewer independent variables predicted FLE and FLA at the start or the end of the middle school compared to the middle phase. Or let's say the independent variables, I will introduce that later. Independent variables, this assay focused on teacher-centered variables, and the internal variables, which focused on the learner sides. So independent variables means the causes or the reason or the influencing factor that can have an impact on the dependent variables. And in this assay, the dependent variables are FLE and FLA. So you can understand in this way that the independent variables can change. Absolutely, it can change, and it can also influence other dependent variables. But dependent variables cannot influence independent variables. For example, let's say when teacher use the target language or the foreign language that you are learning, let's say target language, when the teacher uses the target language more frequently, then theoretically you will have a relatively higher score of foreign language enjoyment. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a higher level of FLE, then the teacher must use the target language more. So you can understand independent variables and dependent variables in this way. Well, this is the result, and two different parts of the results. The first is how FLA and FLE evolved among different age groups, and the second is about the regression analysis. And the last part of the abstract is the implication. So the author said that, the causes of positive and negative emotions are dynamic. Well, absolutely. I think the implication is also very, very simple and clear. So let's move to the introduction part. Let me see at first, have an overview of the introduction part. This part includes 4 different paragraphs, and I will introduce them paragraph by paragraph. The first paragraph, firstly, the author introduced 2 esteemed professors. The first is Professor Dornier. And the second is Professor Ryan. Professor Dornier and Professor Ryan exhorted the studies of the full range of emotions and addressed the phenomenon called emotion deficit. And they also heeded the fact, or they acknowledged the studies of FLA and its negative effects. Wait a minute, not SLA, but FLA. FLA and its negative effects, and also heated FLE proposed by Dwell and McIntyre. Let me see. This is the first paragraph. So why the author said this here? Why the authors introduced Professor Dornier and Ryan here is because I think they tried to lay a foundation for their future research or their following parts of their essay. Because Professor Dornier firstly said the emotion deficits, which is a phenomenon in the existing studies, and they exhorted the studies or more studies of the full range of emotions, and that's why this essay then focused on FLE and FLA. So we can see that this is a kind of background, and then not only about the gaps or the limitations of the existing studies, this essay also said Professor Dornier and Ryan also heeded and moreover acknowledged or recognized FLEs and FLA's development, which are the two prominent emotions in the existing studies. So I think this part tried to form the background of the study, and also tried to form a gap for their following parts, and more importantly, introduce the core concepts which are FLA and FLE. So you can see that if you don't analyze this part thoroughly or in detail, you just think that it doesn't mean anything. But if you try to, for example, explain it to yourself, or when I am recording it right now, I'm telling to myself, I'm speaking to myself, I think it's also a way to understand it from another perspective, because you're just like teaching another person. Well, so I think from my limited point of view, this is the function of this paragraph, laying a foundation, pointing out the gaps, and also introducing or bringing in the two different core constructs that this essay will discuss further. So this is like the first paragraph, but we haven't finished that part because we haven't introduced who is Professor Dornier and who is Professor Ryan. So Professor Dornier is a Hungarian-British linguist and is recognized as the leading authority on second language motivation. So we have to remember that Professor Dornier is associated with second language motivation, and he also advocates the dynamic perspective on learners' psychology, and he believes that individual differences aren't static traits, but dynamic states. So we need to make a difference between, or not make a difference, but we need to have a clearer understanding or know the difference between trait and state. Trait is just like your personalities or your characters, which sometimes are innate or won't change that swiftly, or won't change probably in a very short time. But state is something more fluctuating and can be manipulated, changed in a very short time or relatively short time. So this is the differences between trait and state, especially in the field of academic studies. So we must remember that Professor Dornier is the leading authority of second language motivation, and Professor Ryan is also a preeminent figure or scholar in this field. And he mainly focused on research in Japanese, and now he's serving as an in-service teacher, professor in a Japanese university, but I don't I'm not very sure which university, and he mainly focused on East Asian context. I think this is closely related to his probably academic background or his career. So this is the paragraph 1. It's very simple, but it contains a lot of details and useful information. And we move to the next part, is the paragraph 2. And I think paragraph 2 is a kind of transitional paragraph because it shifts from Dornier and Ryan's views to the existing studies. So the author used existing studies to prove that Dornier and Ryan's views are well-grounded. Moreover, this paragraph also briefly introduced the history of FLA and FLE. So FLA is a concept that has emerged much earlier than FLE. So FLE was firstly proposed by Professor Dewell and McIntyre. And for FLA, there will be a scholar that we will introduce further in this essay, and I need to check it out to make sure the accuracy. Let me see. Okay, so the founding or the mother or the founding mother or the founding figure of FLA is Horwitz, Professor Horwitz. Just like Professor Dewell and McIntyre, Professor Horwitz, no, sorry, so I'm sorry for my pronunciation. Horwitz firstly proposed this kind of concept and designed the scale of FLA. So she is absolutely the founding mother of FLA. Okay, so this is the second part or the second paragraph. So we move to the paragraph 3. So this part also started from the origin of FLE, which is positive psychology. So let me see. Wait a minute. Let me see the overall logic. Okay. Well, so in paragraph 1, paragraph 2, this essay firstly introduced the background, the gaps, and also introduced FLA and FLE. And made a very, very short introduction of FLA and FLE about the history. And then, in paragraph 3, the author then explained FLA and FLE in detail. But how the author introduced this part, I think they also followed the longitudinal line or followed the time flow, started from the positive psychology, which is just like an umbrella term that includes foreign language enjoyment. Let me see. But actually, in this part, I think the author mainly focused on FLE instead of FLA. Indeed. Indeed. This part, the author's they mainly focused on FLE. They didn't really say much about FLA. Well, this is something very confusing because you try to study the two different concepts or construct in this single essay, then why do you just introduce FLE? This is my question. So whatever, we will need to move on. In paragraph 3, this part also started from the origin of FLE. Just like paragraph 2 has already introduced, and paragraph 1 also introduced FLE. In paragraph 3, the authors then tried to introduce this concept in a more detailed way. So they started from the origin of FLE, and that is the positive psychology. So let me see. And then this essay briefly introduced how people shifted their attention from exclusively on negative emotions to positive emotions. Also the historical development. Okay. So this is just like positive emotions or the development of positive emotions, because positive emotions was developed from the negative emotions. In the last century, the negative emotion was something that the psychologists or psychiatrists, they more frequently study, especially they need to cure the disease of their clients in the clinics. So this is why negative emotions were very, very popular compared with the positive emotions. But after Professor Seligman, which was the president of American Psychological Association, after Professor Seligman introduced and highly recognized the concept of positive psychology and also recognized positive psychology's contribution to flourishing people's life, positive emotion then started to thrive, and people then shifted their attention to positive emotions. But this is just something not quite related to foreign language enjoyment, because positive psychology means a kind of a positive emotion that will make your life meaningful, make your different aspects of your life flourish. So it not only focuses on FLE or FLA or foreign language acquisition. So when people and how people shifted from positive emotion to the field of second language acquisition, or when people brought this kind of positive emotion to the second language acquisition, was the milestone that the milestone essay written by Professor Dewell and McIntyre. So this is the historical development of this kind of concept. So the author need to introduce this kind of flow very clearly. So this is the function of the first part of paragraph 3. So this she introduced the development of this kind of concept and when and where it comes from. So this is paragraph 3. And paragraph 4 is Professor Dewell investigated the effects of teacher-centered variables and learner internal variables. So one set of variables focuses on teachers, and the second focuses on learners. And those sets will become the independent variables in this essay in the regression models. And then the dependent variables were FLA and FLE. So this is paragraph 4. Paragraph 4 mainly, let's say, introduced the existing studies which are directly associated with the present study. Because this study used the same data or the same statistics from the previous study written by Professor Dewell. So this is just like the development of the previous study, because the previous study focused on the static effects, and the present study proposes to use the same data through a more dynamic approach. So the dynamic approach, and then the author, you can see that this is the first part of the paragraph 4, and in this part the author firstly introduced the most closely related article written by Professor Dewell, and then moved to the present study and how the present study is associated with the one written by Professor Dewell previously, and then moved to another important thing, which is dynamic. Since the author said through a more dynamic approach, then what is dynamic? Then the author quoted as kind of definition of dynamic. So this is also this also reminds me that I also need to make a very, very clear definition of dynamic in my own research. Especially at the very beginning, I need to define what is dynamic feature, or what is the moment-to-moment changes of FLE. I think moment-to-moment changes in my essay is different from the one that the author quoted here, because dynamic here means the interest in the flow of time on dependent variables is what distinguishes the dynamic approach from a more static approach. So it focuses on the flow of time and focus on, focus on the flow of time, but the flow of time is just like a longitudinal experiment. You trace the development of an age group. But my research isn't that kind of dynamic. It's a kind of immediate fluctuation of FLE. So probably the definition of dynamic need to change, and I need to find another definition which can perfectly fit for my writing. And then after this definition, also in paragraph 4, the author moved to the methodology and the aim of the present study. Because this is the introduction part, by the way, so the author must introduce methodology and the aim of the study. But here it's a little bit different from that in the abstract, because you can explain your methodology and the aim of the study more clearly, or relatively more, let's say, comprehensive. You can include more details here compared with that in the abstract. So the author, here they said the aim and the methodology here is firstly how FLE and FLA evolve by comparing different age groups. You can see from this single sentence, how means the aim of the study, and by comparing means the methodology of conducting such an experiment. So this is a very, very important writing technique, which includes the two different parts of your essay, your aim and how you do this. The author has used this in the abstract, in the introduction. So this is one of the most frequently used way of writing. This is very, very important. And the second is how the interconnections between various independent variables and the dependent variables change over time. This is like the research question, but this is also the aim of the present study. But in this part, the author didn't really, didn't really include the methodologies. Probably because the first sentence has already introduced, because the methodology is basically the comparison of different groups. So after the introduction, we'll move to the literature review. But let me see. Today we have a limited time because now we have recorded more than 30 minutes. So I'll leave this literature review tomorrow. This literature review, I'm still reading this part. So you know, I need to form a habit that I need to record my academic progress every day and record my thinking and help myself review what I have learned as I am recording here. So this can also become a pressure or a force that can constantly push me to read more about essays, more about this field. And gradually, I think I can understand them more easily, and I can, read through essays, multiple essays, more, quickly. Because right now I need to search for various scholars, which I am not very familiar with. I need to search for their core academic contributions, and I definitely need to recite them. And I think I still need some time, but I try to record my academic progress every day. So this kind of recording also will help me to force myself do more. And one day I believe all those things that I have done will finally pay off, and I will become, I don't dare to say like a preeminent figure in this field, but I think I can also have a rudimentary understanding of this field, and I can talk to other people, and I really can make contributions to the field that I am working on, to the real and practical issues that I am focusing on. Because foreign language enjoyment and foreign language anxiety and other academic studies that I'm now working on, I think they are practical and they are of high value of the real issues that are happening in our society. So I think one day I think I will become successful, and I just think I need more time. And this is just like a must. This is the way that I need to go through. And you can regard this as a tough way, but I will regard this as a kind of pilgrimage. Because every good thing won't, you won't get them very easily. And if you get them easily, then other people can also do that. I think it's just a way it's just the way that every scholar, I think, will undergone or have already undergone. And also you can see that when I am expressing my ideas or retelling the article, you can also see that I have a lot of grammar mistakes or inappropriate use of words. But you must know that I am also a second language learner. I'm also I'm also in the process of second language acquisition. And I'm just an undergraduate student, so you must know that I am trying my best to perform like a native speaker, like a scholar. But you have to know the reality. You have to know that I need more time to become fluent, to become more accurate, to become to have the ability to express English in a more complicated way. So I believe this is one of the most effective way to practice my speaking and also to enhance my academic ability. So I think one day my dream will come true. And I believe that. I always believe that. So, well, this is the end of today. And today I have relatively more time because I have booked an empty room. So tomorrow, I think I will have a relatively shorter time because tomorrow will be because tomorrow I have like multiple courses. So, but I will try my best to read more essays, and I will make sure that I can record every day. And this is the end of today. This is MS Wise Research Notes, and hope to see you tomorrow. Good night.